Welcome to Momentum Marketing with Stonehill Media, where we dive into the stories behind innovative brands and the leaders driving them forward. I'm Janelle Lentz, and joining me today is Cody Romness, co-founder and head of marketing and sales at Allegiate. A former USC Trojan football player, Cody first explored the connection between strength training and success through a blog. That passion led him to reconnect with his co-founders, and in 26 they went all in on Allegiate, creating an amazing community and helping others. Cody, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Stoked to talk marketing, business, sales, and inspire some folks that are out there thinking about taking the leap.
Fantastic. So my first question for you is if you can just give us the origin story of Allegiant.
Yeah, it's a fun one, and nice timing too because April is our 8-year anniversary as a business. So basically, what was happening is prior to Allegiant, I was working in the music business for a rock band, manager of a rock band called Incubus. They were big in the 90s. And then I moved to a company called Patreon, big in sort of the artist creator space. And I was working their talent development team. And my soon to be business partner, Steve, was reading a blog post that I was writing just based off of passion. It was me talking about my workouts, sort of on Facebook at the time, one of the classic stories of like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm just going to do it anyways because maybe something good will happen from it. And I was just like blogging about my workouts, hitting publish, and closing my laptop and running away because I didn't know if people are going to read it or not. Right. Steve was in eventually reading the blog post. Steve was in kind of like finance, mergers and acquisitions. He's like, hey, what if we brought together our collegiate strength conditioning program that we had as USC football players with our collegiate strength conditioning coach, and we replicated it as like a boutique fitness concept. And so that was kind of the genesis of the idea. We needed to find somebody that would be the coach. And that's how we got onto Tim Karen, my other business partner. He was the head strength conditioning coach of Army West Point of their football program. Amazing strike of timing and lighting. He wanted to get out of collegiate strength and conditioning because just from a family lifestyle standpoint, it's musical chairs sometimes. Steve wanted to invest in like a fitness business, and I actually had just gotten let go in Patreon because they decided to close their sales department. So it was this amazing lineup of like timing and lighting. I was looking for a job. We had the money to do it. Tim was down. And so basically a week or 2 weeks later, after talking to each other, we all moved to Los Angeles, and we started what would be Allegiate. We didn't have a brand name, we didn't have a location, we didn't know at all what we were doing, but we had a hope and a dream, and that was 8 years ago.
Wow, that's it's always amazing when the stars align and you can really get that really engaged team to move you forward. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a critical piece of why I think I felt comfortable doing it because starting your own thing is terrifying. At least it was for me. It's like, hey, what if this works out? What if this doesn't work out? And all those pieces. And there's so many things that go into a business. But I had two partners, one that was really good on areas that I wasn't as strong on in terms of like finance and P&Ls and that kind of world. And then the other business partner that was focused solely on the product and coaching coaches and coaching sessions and doing the product side, where I could just focus on marketing, sales, branding, which is like what I was inherently good at and cared most about. And so, as you think about people out there starting a business and having business partners, finding other people that are skilled better than you in important other facets and areas of the business is probably one of the most important lessons that and takeaways that I could recommend, because it's really hard. The odds are stacked against you, but when you have multiple people rowing this company in the right direction and everybody's focused on their own leg of the stool, so to speak, it increases those chances that you're going to be able to build something special at the time you need to do it.
Absolutely. And it removes any of those bottlenecks. I find with a lot of beginner entrepreneurs, they're really bootstrapping and they're everything. They're the chief cook and bottle washer. And it makes it difficult to really hit those revenue goals and to really grow a business. So it's great that you had that support team right from the start. It's fantastic. Can you go into what your company's primary focus and who your target market is?
Yeah, so we do strength and conditioning classes and personal training. We've got 3 gyms in Los Angeles. We started with 1, we moved to 2, and then we got to 3. We're working on our 4th one. But what we sell is strength conditioning programming and coaching, sort of in this environment, right? Where it's like you're if you were an athlete and you trained with your buddies in the off season, Allegiant is kind of tapping back into that experience. So part community, part strength training stuff. Our target demographic, there's a couple different folks that I think Allegiant really works for. Uh, you know, the former college athlete, I think, resonates with Allegiant the most because it's a style of training they used to have. It's not available in the marketplace. They are introduced to a certain caliber and style of training that they know and they miss. And so usually when they come in, it's like a home run for that person. Now, from like a total addressable market standpoint, a former college athlete is not, there's not every other person walking the street is a former college athlete, right? So we've sort of broadened our market in terms of people that are like seeking structure, that are seeking strength and conditioning, that want like a true strength training option and not like a cardiovascular focused option, where most fitness concepts in the boutique space that are out there are yoga focused or cardio focused or hit focused. There's not like a true strength training concept. And that was kind of our business hypothesis and thesis of, let's provide and let's be the people to provide based on what we know and a problem we were looking to solve ourselves out in the working world. Let's, bring this high quality strength and conditioning experience for former college athletes or people that want and desire that style of training.
Okay, that's a great audience. There's such demand for a difference in that space, like you pointed out. Something different than the yoga, than the hit, the spin cycle classes, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, I mean, all those concepts are just on every corner. You know what I mean? And so, to have a differentiated offering, was super important for us to go into a pretty crowded market.
and you mentioned you're moving into your fourth location, so congratulations on that. Are there any big challenges for you right now? It could be around that new opening or just something that you're working on consistently.
I mean, there's always challenges in business. You know that. That was a loaded question. That was a softball for sure. Yeah. So there's. I would answer this in kind of two ways. One, there's like new location expansion where it's finding the real estate, building the gym, but then also like spinning up marketing campaigns and finding members prior to opening so you can hit your break even. Ideally, before you open the doors, where you've got a really solid community, and you're off and running, because that sort of do or die phase is from like doors open to how much money you have from like working capital. And if you're not starting from a foundation of reoccurring money already coming in through memberships and pre-sales, it's very scary. And that was year one of our business. And I never want to go back to that place again because it was so gnarly and hard. So that's kind of new location expansion is like one challenge. But the other thing is we've got 3 locations. We're like over 600 members in LA. Like it's a pretty big operation now. And getting, as I focus on new markets, we can't just leave the rest of the business, and pretend like everything's going to be okay. So much of what I've been doing is like building systems, removing bottlenecks, putting the right people in place, letting some other folks go, redesigning staff and being as efficient as I possibly could to, one, get the job done, but two, also be, paying attention to profit and our P&L and setting ourselves up for the best chance of success as a new location pops up. I can really focus in on that and know that the core home base is still going to be okay. So in short, it's scaling, it's operations, it's building system, it's hiring, it's training, it's firing, and it's new business development.
Absolutely. I'm big into goals. I have goals in my personal life, goals in the business. Do you have any growth goals?
From like a business perspective, from a personal development perspective, how so?
Let's start with business, but we can definitely dive into personal goals.
Yeah, I mean, our big picture vision is we want to build a mainstream fitness brand. Like, I don't want to be the best kept secret in LA or like the coolest gym in LA. Like, we want to be, when you think about Orange Theory or F45 or Barry's Boot Camp, like we want to have that level of mainstream brand, but doing with our style of training. And we've always kind of talked about that, like 50 to 80 unit location seems like the right kind of balance for us. From like a quality control standpoint, but also a scale standpoint. But you know what? Honestly, if we end up going like a franchising route, now you start opening hundreds of these things rather than kind of that 50 to 60. So the overall umbrella goal is to be a mainstream fitness brand, and kind of like when you could kind of compare or stand Allegiant next to a lot of those key players that we see in the space. So that's like the high level, 10-year plan. And then, before that is like other goals as well of like, okay, we've got targets at each of our locations. I'm in our Santa Monica office right now. That's got a membership goal. Our South Bay location, that's got a membership goal. Century City, that's got one too. And I'm really into this stuff as well. But like those are all lag metrics, right? Those are all final destination. But what are the things that go into those goals to be able to hit those? So like in sales, if you've got a sales target, well, what are the things that will go into you achieving that? For example, like phone calls made or leads generated or prospecting emails sent. And like really focusing a lot of my goals on what are the input lead metrics that are going to, if I can focus in and control those things, then the output lag metrics will take care of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that reverse engineering of a goal, and that's applicable across personal, business, anything that you need to achieve. Okay, here's our end goal. Okay, how do we achieve that and build those steps so that it becomes that day to day, that habit and consistency that you're developing to reach that goal. Is there anything preventing you from reaching those goals right now? There's a whole smattering of goals that you listed, but is there any one thing that's peeking out that's maybe preventing you from reaching those goals?
I mean, lead generation and conversion through paid advertising is tough in Los Angeles. I did it on my own for a long time. Then I hired an agency for about a year who, said they were going to be able to really perform better than what I was doing on my own to an order of magnitude that I was like, wow, I must be messing something up. Now that I've actually had the experience of working with them, though they've been really great on some things, it was like nowhere near kind of where they thought that they could take it. And so I think that was comforting for me in one sense of like, all right, I wasn't messing some things up, and it is a lot harder than I thought. But two of like, our main initiative here on the marketing side is bringing our advertising in house. So it's like, throughout my career of reading all the books on copywriting, on marketing, the Ogilvy's on advertising, the direct marketing methods, Dan Kennedy, all that stuff. Like I could go on, right? And like we can make the creative in house. We can hire a video editor on Upwork. We can do all that stuff and control that part. But then it's like finding a media buyer and like going through that stuff on the back end of Meta and Facebook and like so like a lot of those pieces as we bring this agency in house has kind of been where I've really focused most of my time here. And then it's like you got to build the sales conversion system. Once you generate a lead, follow up with that lead. What are all your software systems that look like? Do you have a sales rep that can actually convert on that? Do you have a compelling enough offer? Are you charging enough for that offer to recoup your ad costs and your customer acquisition costs? So it's like building out that whole sophisticated from idea to actual member conversion and making it scalable. So it's not just you with all the knowledge up here, but other people can come into your system and train it. That's probably the biggest challenge that an opportunity that we've been dealing with so far 2 months into 2025.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the that sales or the marketing and then sales funnel, and how that applies across a business. It leans towards more in-house for sure, because you can control that whole funnel. Whereas sometimes when you're looking just sheer marketing side, it's like you end up with this wall where it's like, okay, I've gotten them into the top of your funnel. Now what does that sales process look like? So really that's kind of one of the benefits of having that in-house sales and marketing. And the issue then becomes, the inverse is sometimes you get in your own head, or you get in your own way, or like you said, you're doubting, am I doing what I need to do? And you kind of you need some outside perspective sometimes. Like even
Yep.
myself as a marketer, we do it all the time where I'll ask, friends who are in the industry, just to like just buddy check me a little bit.
And I think I don't know that's not what I'm doing is not the answer for somebody else that might be watching this, right? And there's reasons that your agency exists because this is it's really overwhelming and hard to figure out. But back to what we were talking about with picking your partners, I'm not coaching classes. I'm not making the P&Ls. Like I'm just very focused on marketing. As I think again back to that bigger picture goal of okay, 50 to 80 units. Well, what are going to be the assets and the things that I need to start figuring out now to set us up for success in that future? And really for me, it's like if I can figure out an internal agency that we can land and expand in new markets with the creative that we want and go after the target demographic and avatar that we know loves this product. And if we can spin up campaigns and understand that, that's the single greatest thing that I'll be able to do in contribution to the business that's aligned with like my business partner's goals, with my goals, and just like honestly also helping the most people possible and adding the most value to the world. Cause obviously I'm super biased as a founder, but like we do amazing work. Our coaches are awesome. People are getting tremendous results. And so it's this really cool intersection for me. And I'm very fortunate and lucky and, thankful for the fact that like this thing I'm peddling, the stuff I'm selling is like transformational in people's lives. And like, that's always really nice for me to have that at the core when I'm going and building all this stuff out. Cause it's like, I'm not selling you, no offense to Coca-Cola, but I'm not selling you a can of Coke that's going to ruin your life if you're drinking it, consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about that marketing and sales funnel. Can you go into more details about how you're currently acquiring those new customers, getting them into that funnel?
Yeah, I mean, any way that you can try it, I've tried it or done it. And there's the inbound aspect where people are typing gym near me into Google Maps or Google. And you've got organic stuff that you can do from just having gym in your name. So like we made the URL of Allegiate. The company's name is Allegiate, not technically Allegiate Gym, but I knew like, well, we should have gym in our URL because people are going to be searching for gym, not, Allegiate. So like, anywhere from stuff like that to, referrals. We often, every quarter, we do a new referral competition. So right now we're running one that's if you join, you, if your buddy refers you and he joins, then you each get 50% off your next month's membership. And then we'll rotate. We'll do another one in the next quarter. So like stuff like that. There's paid advertising stuff that you can do, which is mostly on Meta right now. For us, we're going to do some Google AdWords stuff at our Century City location because I feel like there's probably just more inbound intent on something like that where Google Ads might play a little bit better. We host events. We're constantly doing, we've got kind of like an alcohol related event where people can go and be social at a bar, or we've got like another, like a team community hike event that we can do. And so and just because it worked at one location doesn't mean it's going to work at another location. That's the other thing too, is like you always got to try and test stuff and give it enough of a chance where you can't just do it. Don't just do it one time and expect like you're going to know if the results happen or not. Like everybody's getting overwhelmed and bombarded with everything. So if you're going to do direct mail, give yourself a chance with a high enough number of postcards to be able to do that stuff. And so I usually kind of joke about it. Like in my early career, I was always looking for like one lever to pull and like all these members were going to come in and I was going to figure it out. But the more I've done this, it's more like it's a bunch of different levers that you have to pull and each thing is going to kind of spit out some stuff. And then you got to not have holes in the bucket, as Dan Kennedy talks about, with your follow-up systems and a great product and a sales process and a first impressions. And so like, it's just this never ending cycle of like ideas to generate leads, but then also to nurture and convert those leads into folks that, want to be your customers. And it's a formidable opponent. Like it's definitely a lot of work that go into it, but I think, that's why we play the game. And if you can figure this stuff out, that's a really valuable skill set when it comes to building out more companies or, leveraging your knowledge base into something that is going to transfer into, a big score for you.
Absolutely. And you talked about promos. And I know a lot of the business owners that come to me and they talk about promos and they feel that it's like they're giving away the baby with the bathwater, for lack of a better expression. Do you have any tips or advice on how to pick a good promo for your business without feeling like you're giving away your product or service?
Yeah, I would say don't give away your product or service. Like you should frame like people pay attention to what they pay for. So every gym is doing a free 1 week pass. So you probably shouldn't do a free 1 week pass because it's a proliferation of 1 week passes out there. There's no shot at differentiation. But I think the Alex Hormozy books where he's talking about $100 million offers and you find out like what are the prospects' needs, wants, desires? What do you offer? And how can you match those two things to make such a packaged offering that is so far superior than what Johnny's gym down the block is offering. So one thing that we do, like we'll do these 6 week programs where nobody wants to join a gym, but they do want to purchase like a defined goal in a set amount of time. So you put a time constraint on a 6 week program, you add fitness, you add nutrition, you add accountability. Or if I'm a jiu-jitsu studio and it's like maybe you got people that are competing and they want to fight, or you got other people that just want to do this to like learn something new and have a hobby. But then you could structure it around this like higher ticket offering of like $500-600. So if you're paying for ad spend, you can recoup that ad spend on every sale that you get. And that person is going to be more interested in it because it's a differentiated offering. Whereas like if you're not seeing any success on like advertising a 1 week trial, it's like, yeah, no wonder, because nobody cares about a 1 week trial because everybody else is doing it. And then you got to get the person in, and then you got to get them through the trial, and then you got to follow up to see if they can join a membership. And it's like, it just takes forever on that sales process. So I would just say, you know, sit down and put together an offer in a thing that is just like, oh my God, I want this. Like, make an offer so great that people would say dumb to pass on. And just load it up and then get your math right where it's like, if this makes sense. If you try it like you're not selling any of them, you could potentially lower the price a little bit and make it even more compelling. Or it's like, hey, are we not selling it because of the offer, or is it because the sales team that we have selling the thing?
Absolutely. Is now you mentioned like the plugging the holes and making sure those holes aren't there. Do you have any advice for people as to how they can plug those holes or what they should be looking at to know that those holes are there?
They should for sure have a robust CRM that can do a lot of the important automations and that can get the right message to the right person at the right time. And so you should be texting, you should be emailing. I think those are kind of the main communication points. Robots still can't do phone calls, but having automated text messages to do a personal phone call and like touch base with that prospect as soon as they come in and your sort of customer, their customer journey. So like spending a lot of time to have a really good, robust marketing and sales CRM is mission critical. It's one of my biggest problems with MindBody, who's the software that we use on the fitness and marketing side. Is 8 years ago they were absolutely horrible on sales and marketing, but now they've gotten a lot better. However, I've had to cobble together a lot of different pieces, and it's just like too much of a sunk cost to be able to actual switch. But for this person out there that's thinking about it, like find out, think about, learn what your customer sales pipeline is, your leads generated. You got to connect with them. Are they purchasing an intro offer? Are they showing up for their first visit? Has that intro offer expired? And then if you close that business, close won or close lost. And then once you know what are each of those channels that I have to move a prospect through, what are the automations that you can build at each step in the marketing pipeline? And then you use text messages, you use emails, you use phone calls, all throughout that to do a really good job of nurturing that prospect so they get the right message at the right time. And you don't have to do all the manual following up. Because if you're a solopreneur or you're like a small business owner, you're going to get completely overwhelmed if you have to do all that stuff. But software can get so much of it done for you that you won't actually have to do it. But it does require a bit of like, seeing the forest, not the trees, and building out, what is that customer journey and how do I use software to kind of like get people through it.
Mhm. That tech stack is so important. And I'm constantly trying new things or looking at a client's business and like how would this tech stack work with that business owner, with what their goals are and then, their familiarity and their ability with technology. And the great thing with AI is a lot of these things you're able to really, really refine and program and get that automation without it being robotic or hurting that sales process. So there's some fantastic things out there. It is intimidating and really there's so many free trials for things. Again, like you said, find that bigger goal, lay out those steps, and see what's out there that can do those things for you because there's often lots of different opportunities. And those tech companies, they love to hop on a demo call.
Totally.
They're very
Totally.
happy. So you've mentioned a lot of different things. Is there anything that stands out in your mind that hasn't worked? Is there something that you were just like, you thought this was going to be a great idea and it just didn't quite pan out the way you wanted?
Yeah, I usually joke like, what's the quote that Thomas Edison was like, I didn't find one way to make a light bulb, I found 10,000 ways that didn't. It's that's probably my marketing journey in like a succinct summary. I mean, I've done anything from, walking up to office buildings nearby, just cold walking in with flyers, or like trying to talk to a decision maker, or cold calling people, or cold emailing people. I've done direct marketing campaigns, I've done like all the stuff. So I think it depends. You should test everything because anything that I tell you might work for you and vice versa. So it's like that probably at the end of the day is the absolute best advice. One expert might say it works, one expert it doesn't. Like, do your best job, but it's like knowing what your fundamentals are of like, I'm a big fan of the direct response marketing. So there's the Coca-Colas of the world that are doing brand building stuff and seeing billboards that just says Coca-Cola. Well, if I did that, that would be burning $50,000 a month just to put Allegiate up there. Like, that's just burning money. Where it's like, okay, if you've got to have an offer, you've got to have a reason to act now. There has to be some scarcity to it, and understanding like, okay, what are the fundamentals that go into a promotion? And then how do I bake that into all my different mediums or channels that I'm trying? And then am I also making sure that I'm actually tracking this stuff so I know if it's working or if it's not working? And then, there's in the moment tracking, but then there's also like the LTV tracking, because I might close 10 members in a promotion from this 1 month, and then they churn the next month. Whereas I might close 5 members on this other promotion from this other source, but they're with me for the rest of their lives. And like, which one's better? Well, it depends on the timeline and the horizon that you look at this thing. So it's not a very like tight answer for you, but I think you just never know until you test.
Absolutely. And testing doesn't need to be a big, super complicated process as well. I've been really into working with meta ads and doing micro testing. So we have a lot of ad creative, we have a lot of ad copy, we have a lot of different call to action, and we're putting moderate amounts of spend, and we're just nudging. So it's essentially a whole bunch of drops in the bucket, but it really starts to tell us, is this offer, is this promotion, is this going to work? And
And are you able to get enough of an idea through that kind of micro testing if things are working or not? Like, is the end there?
it is. It is, yes. And it's very iterative. So it's very small changes. So it's not, we might use the same image in 5 different ads and the same ad copy, but the call to action is different. Or it's the same creative, the ad copy is slightly different, the call to action is the same. And it really helps. And that's really that starting point. So when we're working with a company that hasn't built out ads and they really haven't defined exactly, even who their target audience is. You'd be amazed at how many people I speak to that just they don't even understand who they're marketing to, and it just allows us to really build that base. And it's just you have to be in there all the time. Yeah. But again, AI is super helpful to really to give you that baseline of those iterative campaigns, so that you're leveraging that. Now, never just use AI. it's it's still not a good idea just to let it run wild. But if you do the right prompt and you have that human touch in there, and people, they know their business, you know your business, I know mine, you just massage and work it through. And again, yeah, that micro iterative testing is fantastic in a social space. In a social space, it's great.
On the AI front, I mean, yeah, it's been I agree with you. You can't just let it run. But if you hit the nail on the head. If you know the right prompts to ask, and then if you get something back, you're like, okay, that's close, but say it more like this because I don't like how you did this. And then you get some feedback on that, and then you can land on some like, okay, wow, now we're getting somewhere. Like now we're cooking, baby. And I've really been leveraging it a lot more on that front. I've been doing it a lot on like when it comes to like on our operations and our front desk side. This is more like business ops side, where it's like I hired a VA to run front desk and run point for all digital communications, for like texting, for emails. And I've been way more consistent. But one of my fears, consistent for my members, so they're enjoying the experience more. One of my fears was like, well, what if they don't have the right ability to kind of like have the right tone or say or talk and communicate? I don't want my members to know that this is like a VA in the Philippines. I want them to feel like a community member. And so leveraging ChatGPT, where my VA can ask questions to it and say this in an Allegiate tone, and then use that as like a person that can help her out. It's like it's been tremendously impactful and helpful.
Hmm. And especially if you can get into that back end and really prep that AI model, that it understands your tone of voice, common colloquialisms used in English that maybe an English as a second language speaker isn't familiar with, really understanding, regionalities, because there's different ways of speaking in different places. And you can really go in there and program, and even right down to having it answer common FAQs, just like you would on your website. Plug all those pieces in and then test it and just keep training it and work with that AI, from get out of your own head, step into the mind of your customer, and respond as you would, or as a customer would, so that you can see, is this AI doing what it needs to do? And it's just like everything. It's not a be all end all, but it's definitely something that can help. And especially when people are starting out, this is a great place to leverage when you have that solopreneur, those small businesses where you need that support and you need that help, for sure.
Agreed.
And moving into that, we're talking about support. You were lucky to have those other co-founders with that, that breadth of skills that really was robust from the start. If you could imagine that you didn't have that support when you were first starting out, uh, what type of support would you find would have been more valuable? I know we're kind of playing like a really weird thought experiment here, but so fresh start, it's just you. How would you, what kind of supports would you be looking for to help you get your business going?
Um, a supportive spouse. I'm married, and my wife has been completely supportive of us doing this, and cheering me on, and being that sort of emotional support when you get in there and you're like, man, this is really hard stuff to go it on your own, right? And it's high risk, high reward. But to have somebody in your corner that isn't necessarily business related, but just there for you, I think that is the ultimate rock and the ultimate support that makes a massive difference. The nice thing about having business partners is you don't feel as alone in making all your decisions, and you can ricochet ideas off of each other. So even if you guys are all working on the same thing or have similar skill sets, which I wouldn't recommend, but having other decision makers that you can talk about things is really important. And then I would warn you about having two. I don't think two co-founders is the call. I think you got to have three or more, because if you get to two, then it's like a tiebreak situation where it's a 50-50 thing. And as you get deeper and deeper in stuff, egos can potentially get involved, and it can sink a business. And often one of the reasons businesses fail, they run out of money, that maybe the idea wasn't good enough, but very often the co-founders end up hating each other and fighting each other, because you've got passionate people that are think that their way is the best way to do it. And if you only have two people, it could tear you apart. So I've been very thankful for us to have three people, because sometimes we've all got different ideas, or like they'll basically say, look, I think you're wrong here. I'm like, you know what, it's two against one. And vice versa. And that's just been a really simple but important thing for us. And then, like, what else would I look for? I would look for people. Are you saying, like, if you're looking for a co-founder, or if you're just kind of like out there doing it on your
You're
own?
out there doing it on your own.
I would identify areas that you are not as competent and skilled in, and I would hire freelancers on Upwork to fill those gaps. And I would get good at managing those people. And that will take away some of the insecurity of not knowing how to do some things, or just stuff that you hate doing. Yeah, it's gonna cost you a little bit of money, but if you can outsource it and you can do like 80-85% of the work at not that much from a payroll standpoint, you now don't have to do that anymore. And you kind of build yourself a team as well, where you can kind of communicate like that, and you could place other freelancers in areas that maybe you're not as competent in your business. And between that and a spouse, I think you would be probably mostly there, and you're gonna be running super lean as possible. But reading the books and thinking about the spiritual side of entrepreneurship and meditating, and like this is an all life thing. It's like it permeates all things. I don't know. It's just like I go about my business much the same way about I go about my life. And there's other tools that aren't necessarily just business related that you can acquire and seek out, that you end up having this very robust sort of, like, I don't know, operating system as a founder, and it makes its way into how you go about the rest of your world.
Completely agreed. That support system is so important because it's a very different mindset from being an employee to having, starting something on your own. And yeah, again, even just building that community, because I know Allegiate, you talk about having community to help your clients support their goals in becoming stronger and healthier and living better lives. That we just we can't underestimate the power of community for sure.
Yeah, we're finding other people that are out there building, and just having those conversations with those people. Like conversations like this, with talking with somebody else about business and starting your own thing, is like it's really fun, because we have a lot of the shared commonalities and business experiences, and trials from the trenches. And so if you're out there thinking about starting your own thing, well, find out some other people that are in your world, in your community, or at a coffee shop, that are thinking about doing their own thing too. And maybe you guys can meet up and you could talk about it, and it'll make you feel less alone. That's the other thing too, is like when it could get get pretty lonely when you're out there trying to build something. And if other people have like more stable jobs or whatever, and you're still like grinding on this thing and you're building it up, like those conversations can be hard to have. But when you're talking with other people that are in that same realm of life and trying to do what you're doing, that's like a shared partnership that can be really helpful and special. And you can have your friends to talk to, and if your friends are doing the same thing, it just means like, hey, like they understand it, they get it, and that can be really helpful when things get challenging.
Absolutely. Well, that answers all of my questions. This has been great, Cody. I really appreciate all of your insight. I'm sure that those watching, have taken something away. If you've taken something away, please feel free to leave it in the comments. There'll be information where you can connect with Cody and Allegiate. Check out all of their socials, check out their website. Hopefully, if you're in the Southern California area, you can go and join one of the gyms and join that great community, Allegiate. Again, Cody, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I'm at Cody Romness on all the socials and codyromness.com if you need me.